Dudes, hello and welcome. I am Trent. It is Friday, September 21st, 2018. This is going to be my last Trent's Comment Corner for a while. I'm kind of just getting bored with the format. I've been spending an awful lot of time doing editing and makeup. I don't even look like this normally. I had to do a lot of work to look like this, okay? I still want to answer questions. I just want to do a whole lot more artwork and a little less of this stuff of me. So as I promised, more artwork going on. In this one, I'm going to be doing some character designs. These are just character design explorations for a thing. This is I'm not even really going to be addressing the artwork that you're going to be watching. Let's talk about the most important question that came in this week. I thought this was a good one. Let's do it. This question comes in from Mr. Mountain. Hey man, would you like to make a video with some more tips on how to make yourself more valuable to a video game studio as a designer or employee, or maybe as a freelancer? Thanks. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Mountain. You're asking the right question right out of the gate. I think that if more people ask themselves, how can I make myself more employable, more artists would find themselves employed. I, of course, worked in the video game industry. I have worked in the video game industry for more than 15 years. So I'm not saying I'm an authority, but I have a few ideas. And these are the things that I had to do when I was in my downtime at the office, when I wasn't at the office, the kind of things that I would do to just overall boost my value to the team that I was working with. Because the more you can do to serve your team, the more likely all those other departments will go to bat for you when they're looking at who to lay off during budget cuts. And that's just kind of the truth of it. This kind of a thing is different depending on if you're at a small indie studio or if you're at a bigger AAA studio. And I just want to cover this briefly. When you're at a smaller studio, you're going to wear an awful lot of hats. You're going to sometimes find yourself doing storyboards and user interface, character design, and environment design. Sometimes you're going to be doing 3D models. Sometimes you're just going to be doing mock-ups of UI flow because it just needs to get done, man. Sometimes you're going to even be writing the script for the game. I've done all those things at smaller indie studios. As you go to bigger AAA game studios like Blizzard and Riot, things become a lot more compartmentalized. And in fact, they don't want you sticking your nose in other people's business. They don't want you designing levels on if you're working on, the new whatever AAA game that they're developing, because they've already got a game designer that's a level designer that's doing that, and you're kind of stepping on his toes, man, and that can be frustrating. They just want you to just do your assembly line thing, and that's kind of why I tend to prefer smaller indie studios, because I like to be a jack of all trades. I love making games. I love all aspects of making games, mostly. Let's say, for instance, that you land that job, and let's say that it's a regular concept or an associate concept artist working at a video game studio. How do you bolster your value to the team? One is going to be improving the way through which you communicate with others. So I would suggest listening to a lot of self-improvement books about how to assert yourself in a non-aggressive way. Tony Robbins has a lot of books about this sort of a thing. Get over your personal issues. Don't be a complainer. Try to keep a very positive kind of atmosphere about you, an air about you, so that people don't have negative things to say about you. Get along well with others. Try to be of assistance to others on your team. So what I would do is I would go around and I would ask other departments, such as the environment team, like, hey, do you guys need anything from the concept art department? That kind of a thing facilitates communication, and the more you develop your personal communications, the more valuable you're going to seem to the whole team, even whether or not you're just doing artwork itself. So there's the social aspect and the self-management aspect of improving your value, and I think that those are very valid things to dig into. So while you're painting, listen to some self-improvement books about management. It would be helpful if you're able to help manage projects or manage multiple tasks or set up spreadsheets in Excel or manage scheduling software if they use it. Ask people in different departments, how they do their job. The more you understand what a designer needs from a character design, the better character designer you're going to be. The more you understand what a 3D modeler needs from a concept artist, the more you're going to make yourself valuable to that 3D modeler. It's astounding to me how many concept artists actually hate doing concept art. And it's amazing to me. There's so many that just want to do fancy paintings and not really even communicate with the modelers to find out what do they actually need to make their job easier. The more you make other people's job easier without stepping on their toes, the more you're going to be valued on that team. The biggest thing, the last thing I want to say about personal management stuff is be a problem solver for your team. Learn the craft, learn the ins and outs of every aspect of how to make games. Always have solutions, but don't be demanding about them, and don't insist that others should follow your role, your lead, or your advice or opinion about it. Be humble about it, but be somebody that people can turn to solve problems and end up in a really good place when they listen. So those are a few ideas on how you can improve your personal value, your interactive value, how you interface with the rest of your team. But what about your artistic contribution? How can you improve your visual skills and your methods of productivity to help drive home that game and boost the quality of the entire art team? Of course, doing things like going to local art schools and teaching can be very valuable. Teach them what you know, teach them what you're learning, but also take classes and check out other artists and other concept artists working at other studios on their Gumroad channel and on their YouTube channels and things like that's a pretty common thing now. Pick up new techniques and tools and bring them to your team. If you're studying to work in the video game industry, that journey that you're on right now, that's as good as it gets. Your whole life is going to be exactly what you're doing right now, which should be learning new techniques all the time. How to render better materials, how to render lighting more effectively, how to manage your layers, how to advance and develop your skill set in character design and environment design. That never stops. I've been doing this for doing character designs and environment designs for comics and video games for 25 years, and I'm still not at the top of my game yet. I have not yet done the things like the most effective and efficient way that I could possibly do them. That never ends. And you will, if you're on that journey, that is where you will die. That is, it does not stop. So when you're in-house and you're working with other people, you're going to continue that journey and you're going to continue it with other people. And hopefully you can facilitate communication enough that you start to share those ideas and share those thoughts and those techniques and those practices and those brushes and those new tools, new programs that you're trying out, new hardware that you're trying out. Many people don't realize that when the game goes into its final stages of production, they don't usually have a lot for a concept artist to do. The game director is focused on putting those final polished touches on that game. They're not thinking about what should we give for the concept artist to start working on for DLC or for the next game. In most cases, sometimes they do if they're very well organized. I've never worked on a team that well organized. But a lot of times the concept artist is sitting there going, well, like, what do I do? And you can't exactly go home early or even on time yet because you can never be the guy who goes home early. During this time, there's nothing for a concept artist to do except to help bring the game to a final polished state. And that means learning to be able to do some UI stuff, do those icons. Yeah, I did a lot of achievement icons for Diablo 3. A lot of people on the team did. A lot of people who were done with their job, their biggest part of their contribution to the game, designing armor sets or whatever it was that you were doing through most of the game. Now, what do? Well, there's a lot of things like achievement icons that have to be done. You need to be able to do user interface and icon paintings, and you're going to need to be able to do mock-ups for box art, and you're going to be able to do promotional artwork for the website, and for as the company is trickling out information about the game, what kind of artwork is going to get people hyped and excited, and that's the kind of stuff that most artists just want to do that stuff. So it's good to be able to do that stuff come that time. But there's also things like UV unwrapping. Dig into a 3D modeling package such as Maya. Maya is the general standard. Maya and ZBrush are how most 3D models are built for most of the games that I've worked on anyway. Sometimes they use 3D Studio Max, but I don't hear about that one as much with the studios I've worked with. So dig into Maya, and if you can't afford Maya, just get yourself Blender 3D. It's free. Download Blender and start building some 3D models. Build some textures onto those models, UV unwrap it, texture it up. The more you do this sort of a thing, and yes, include one sheet of that in your portfolio, because it's going to show that, hey, I can do more than just be a digital artist for you. I can also be a 3D modeler. I can be somebody who can texture to create alternates. When we were doing Diablo 3, there was a lot of goatmen in that game, and I probably reskinned about 50% of those goatmen that you see. And that was something that took a load off of the other character modeler, off of their plate, and they appreciated that. So I got commendations from the character team simply because I was making their lives easier by doing a little bit of the stuff. It wasn't heavy lifting or anything like that, but it was stuff that they just didn't have time to do. So be that guy who can help out with all these other different departments, and be the guy that can write stories. That's another really helpful thing that you can contribute is one of the things I love to do, I've always loved to write and draw comic books. So nowadays, comic books are just a little bit too much work for me. So I tend to just like to enjoy writing novellas and short stories and prose and doing designs for environments. And that's kind of what The Beast of Tuxa is. And I've got a new novel that I'm about halfway through right now for 2018. So I feel like something like that is going to be really useful for boosting my value to a potential employer. If I ever decided to go and work at a studio again, they can look at that and go, oh, this guy can build entire worlds on his own. Show them that you're an idea factory. I had one guy ask me the question, hey, I really want to be a concept artist, but I don't have any ideas. And I don't know how to respond to that. That is the whole job, brother. That's like saying I want to fly a plane, but I don't understand how they stay in the air. That is the whole job. So you could build indie games. You could learn the ins and outs of game design, the psychology of game design. You could learn to build 3D models. You learn Unreal Engine if your studio is working with Unreal Engine. Learn Unity Engine. Learn to program. Learn better storytelling, story writing. That'll help inform your character design skills. These are just a few ideas on things that you can do. If you haven't pieced it together yet, you might realize that being a concept artist isn't a 9-to-5. I don't know a single concept artist who goes home at 5 o'clock and has a normal life where everything else shuts off, their work shuts off, and they get to be a human. I joke about that all the time. Concept artists aren't human. And that's because, in my experience, you're not really allowed to be. Your whole life is learning to be a more effective visual development tool for a game's development. And there is a cost, there is a price, and you better love it, brother, or else don't do it. So that's a few ideas on how you can improve your value as an employee in the video game industry. If you're curious about the project that you've been watching me draw and model in the background, this was for an indie game project that I had done with a friend of mine. It was sort of just testing the waters to see if this concept would work, and we ultimately decided to scrap the project and move on to something more interesting in different directions. But who knows, nothing ever really dies. Maybe we'll come back to it or something like that. Anyway, dudes, that about wraps it up for me on this one. Of course, if you would like to hear more insights into game development, please subscribe. If you want my brushes, I have all those over on my Gumroad channel, where I also keep all of my secret knowledge, everything that I've ever learned about how to make video games and do digital art, over on my Gumroad channel. You can check that out. Until next time, dudes, I'll catch y'all. Manyan da bond, and ciao, baby. Oh, yeah.